you know, and that was it. And I went off to Germany, that's right, I went off to Germany to play in the band, to get the money to get married, and I came back with the same amount I left. Absolutely nothing. But we did get married, and it was funded mainly by her mother, God bless her.
Yeah, your wife bought your wedding suit for you, is that right?
The mother did. Yeah.
Oh, the mother?
Well, the mother paid for... Well, they used to have cheques in those days.
Oh, yeah, I forgot what one of them's like.
Yeah, and so and I remember when I got married, there was just my wife, two witnesses, her friend and her husband, the priest, and I went in the pub just down the road prior to the wedding, and my mate said, "You don't half look smart, Charlie. Where are you going?" I said, "I'm going for a job." But I got the job anyway, yeah.
Was that in the pub? Was that in Murphy's?
No, it wasn't. It was the Ham and Eggs, it was called. But Murphy's was the local for me, yeah. Hi, Wade, you know me stuff, mate.
Well, yeah, you'd be surprised what you can find out if you go looking. I mean, then once you were married, you had quite a few jobs, didn't you? But you were a grocery store manager?
I did a whole pile of things. I was Navian to begin with, and then I was quality control engineer. I worked in the flour mills, I worked on the railways, I was a grocery store manager. I was a postman, as I say, in Coventry prior to that. I was a driver, you name it, and worked on the railways. But through it all, the only constant thread was the music of the night, you know. But before I got married, and I don't think I worked much apart from my stint in the army. And once I got married, I never stopped because I had to.
But then you became a teacher.
I did latterly. I was Navian. And I was down a hole in the middle of winter, chipping away at a gas main or something. And I thought, this is no good. I can't be doing this when I'm 50-odd, you know. What can I do? And I was talking to my mate in the pub, and he said, "Charlie, you had a good education." He said, "Why don't you apply for teaching?" So I did. And I was amazed when I passed the entrance exam, and they accepted me. And my great friend in there was the wonderful Jimmy McGovern, who's written all the Cracker CDs, various films and things.
Yeah.
So that was I went straight from knocking a road out with a jackhammer on a Friday to listening to Mozart on a Monday, and I thought, well, this is a good career move.
Yeah.
You know?
So what did you actually teach?
Well, some people would say very little, you know.
Okay, well.
No, I did. I taught a variety of things because it was primary education, and I'd had some lovely letters and things from children I taught, and it's a fantastic occupation, but it's incredibly demanding. I thought when I got the job, well, this is going to be a soft touch. It'll be the hardest job I've ever done because you can never switch off. You're lying in bed at night thinking, I must do that tomorrow for I must do this, and I'm sorry I did that today.
There's a lot of jobs like that, I can assure you.
Yeah, very demanding.
So you took up sort of full-time music in 1994.
Yeah, I sort of took the plunge and well, I was doing little clubs and things like that, and I'd started to write some songs in the hope that might be the key to musical success, I'd always thought. And Foster Allen and Daniel O'Donnell and a few other people had recorded me songs, but I was getting nowhere as a singer. Then in the end of '94, Foster Allen said, "Will you do our support for the spring tour of '95?" And I said, "Yeah." I thought, well, this is my big chance. I'll be playing to people who will probably like what I do, you know. So in January of '95, Tony, who's a good friend of mine, phoned up and said, "Listen, Charles, I'm sorry, mate, but we're not having a support now." And I came away from the phone thinking, that's me last chance gone, you know. But the next day, the old spirit re-emerged, and I thought, what can I do positive instead of moping? So I phoned RTE in Dublin, and they said, "Charlie, we've been trying to get you for a month or so. Can you come this week?" And I went with just an acoustic guitar, and I played the bass pedals with my feet, sang two of my own songs. The following week, my son picked me up from school and said, "Dad, you're in the Irish charts." And I said, "What am I, 98?" Which I would have been delighted with. And he said, "No, Dad, you're number 2." And the following week, I was number 1, and this thing which seemed so remote from me, a month or so before, was there.
Yeah, because how spooky is that? I'm going to be having Foster and Allen on in about a month's time, I believe, on the show with me.
People. And they're in Australia now. I've just come back from there, and I saw the adverts for them while I was down there, and I gave them a plug because they're good friends of mine.
Yeah, I think when they come back from Australia, I think they're coming into the show. The other thing I didn't know about you were on Opportunity Knocks.
I was, something like 1972.
Yeah.
And we were beaten by, I think they were were called Airborne from the RAF. And I was told, I mean, they were lovely lads, and the lad come over to me after we'd done the show, the main singer, and he said, that was smashing that, mate. He said, if you record that, I'll go and buy it myself. He said, it was great. So I thought that was very generous of him. And we were told that the postman in Birkenhead said, Charlie, you've got no chance. He said, so many thousand of your votes went in on the Wednesday. He said, you'll never get there in time. And they, of course, had all of the RAF voting for him. So we were second, but it was an experience.
Can you remember what you sung?
I sang the old Beatles. I sang when I went for the audition. I was singing different songs. He said, "What else?" And I mentioned a few, and he said, "Sing that." So I sang the Long and Winding Road, the Beatles song. You know?
Yeah,
great song.
One of my favourites actually, and it's one that's been covered by a few people, and
it's beautiful.
Not always very well. Billy Ocean does a great version of it. I've played that before now, which is great. Tell you what, should we take a break and play one of your new tracks from your new album?
That'd be great, thanks.
29th album. That's 29 albums since 1974.
It's a lot more than I ever thought I'd have anyway.
That's unbelievable. That is.
It is. I've worked hard though.
I bet you have. So since 1994, you've recorded 29 albums.
I've lost count, to be honest. I'm just so thankful that I have recorded any, and I'm still doing it. You know, but it's wonderful to write the stuff and then to find out that it's and what people do with the songs. I get all the credit if it's a decent album, but really, I've got a great team of musicians around me, and they sort of bring my songs to life. Really. Okay,
shall we play "It's a Very Fine Line"?
Yeah, that's
okay. We'll play that, and I'll tell you what. Afterwards, we'll talk about what the song's all about, if we may.
Okay. Yes.
Okay. Lovely.
Don't close your eyes, don't you go too far. Don't you realize how close you are to the edge? You're walking on a very fine line. Don't you walk too proud, set yourself above. Don't talk too loud, don't push and shove, can't you see? You're walking on a very fine line. Remember that you're only passing through. This world don't owe a single thing to you. I make double sure in everything you do. You do it well, you never can tell. Don't live today on tomorrow's dreams. Don't be too gray or too extreme in your views. You're walking on a very fine line. Cross that line, danger may overtake you. The things that you're about may be the very things that break you. Don't scowl and sneer in heaven's face. You'll disappear without a trace left behind. You're walking on a very fine line. The choice is yours and yours alone to make. Do you build things up or are you out to break? Do you give away the world or do you take? It's heaven or hell, better make your choice well. Don't close your eyes, don't you go too far. Don't you realize how close you are to the edge? You're walking on a very fine line. You're walking on a very fine line. walking on a very fine line. You're walking on a very fine line. You're walking on a very fine line. You're walking on a very fine line.
That was Charlie Landsborough and A Very Fine Line. Can you tell us sort of what inspired you to write that song, what the song's all about?
Well, I'm a great believer, you know, I'm a very ordinary fella, but I think it's a sort of a salutary warning to sort of say, you know, don't get carried away with yourself, because it's a very fragile line that we walk, you know, and you're not here forever. Be as nice as you can to people, and don't get too carried away with yourself. I think that's a very simple message that it is, you know.
I think so. I mean, is there anybody, I know you've travelled around the world, is there anywhere you've not been you'd like to go?
Well, the places I'd like to... I mean, I love Australia, where I've just come back from. That's one of my favourite places. And, of course, around the UK. The States is fine, but I'd love to go back to Germany. Because, as I say, I can speak the language a bit. And I know that although it's a great rock market and everything there, they do love country music, and they love ballad singers. And I remember being in the NAFI, and the two cleaners in there kept putting Jim Reeves on, and I said, in German, and I said, can you understand him? And he said, no. I said, well, why are you putting it on? He said, the Stimme, the voice, you know, and the sound. So, and Roger Whittaker, for example, is like a household name there. So they do like the gentler stuff as well as all the heavy rock stuff. So I'd love to go back there.
No, let's go back to Germany.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever played at sort of the big places like the Carnegie Halls and all those sort of places in America?
No. What I did, the only place I played was I did the Grand Ole Opry 3 times in a week, which was fantastic. And I was introduced on stage by George Hamilton, who must be one of the nicest people you could ever wish to meet. He introduced me on stage, and because there was like 4,000 people in, and because it was being recorded for a documentary on me back home, they said, Charlie, you can't use the band, you'll have to go on your own. And after this feast of country music, I was on at the end. It looks like I was top of the bill, but all the big names are in the middle, you know. I just sat there sort of musically naked with just a guitar and sang What Colour's the Wind, and they went deathly silent, which was a bit frightening, because I thought, I hope this is for the right reason. But at the end of it all, they gave me a wonderful reception, and the people were great. And I did an album there with some of the people I'd admired for years. Jerry Douglas, the wonderful dobro player, and Al Perkins. The keyboard player was Don Williams. The fiddle players from the Nashville Bluegrass Band, and they were lovely people. That's what struck me. And of course I met Don Everly, he came into the studio with us. John Prine, who I think is a fantastic writer. We sat on his back porch till 3 in the morning, swapping songs. Lovely people. And no sort of ego was on display at all, which I thought was great.
You've appeared with George Hamilton before, haven't you, in England, or since?
Yeah, George was, he's the most gracious fellow you'll ever wish to meet. I used to do some of these little churches with him, and he'd give me the most wonderful introduction, and he'd sit at the side and listen to the whole set of mine, and then come on and say other nice things about me. He's always directing attention away from himself. He never forgets anybody. He's an incredibly good Christian soul, and I'd be like to call him a friend. That's
great, though, isn't it? Yeah, because you played at Wembley Arena with him, didn't you, as well?
Well, George brought me on. I think he only had 3 songs himself, but he called me on and gave me one. And that was a bit sort of daunting, because it held thousands, you know. And to walk out to that after playing in little dockside pubs in Birkenhead was a bit of a revelation, you know.
Yeah, it's quite nice, though, isn't it? Is there anybody sort of? I often ask this question: is there anybody sort of alive or dead you'd love to have played with? You know, is there anybody you thought, I wish I could play with that guy or that lady?
Well, I like so many different forms and genres of music. There's so many people, but of course, like I suppose the greatest band ever in my eyes is the Beatles. So I'd missed the boat. I should have played on the same stage as them when I was a lad, and missed the boat completely when they were only the Silver Beatles. But I do like, I love Willie Nelson. He's done a duet with everybody else, so why not with me, you know? And Dolly Parton, I think, is delightful, both as a singer-songwriter and a musician. But there's so many others. I mean, John Prine, I just adore. I think he's a brilliant writer, and he sounds the same on his back porch as he does on an album, you know. There's loads of them.
Okay, there's nobody